Welcome to Ireland Unfiltered. This week's guest is God Knows Jonas. God Knows is a fascinating man who has an awful lot to say about music in Ireland, racism in Ireland, where the country is going, and he is somebody who I think we're going to hear a lot more from over the years, as well as in this interview that's coming up. But before we go, don't forget to subscribe to Ireland Unfiltered on all the usual channels. And here is God Knows. God Knows, welcome to Ireland Unfiltered.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Tell me first of all about your new single.
Cool. The song is called Crown, and the song is basically shedding light on a few things, but at the same time, it's shedding light on both, because the first half of the song basically talks about the country where I was born, which is Zimbabwe, and then the second half talks about the flourishing music scene in Ireland, what I'm seeing, what I really like, the hip hop scene or the rap scene, or the scene that I happen to be a part of. It's funny to say like the scene, but like the whole thing. I love music in Ireland and where everyone is taking it, but I specifically focused on rap for Crown.
And when you say where everybody's taking it, what does it mean to you, and what is it representing now, do you think? Like when you talk about rap in Ireland.
What is it representing? It's funny, because if I say that they're representing one thing, I'm gonna just say everybody's unique. There's different approaches to it. Big up Diffusion Lab, what they're doing with Jafaris, Soleil, Rushes, those guys. I love what they're doing and where they're taking it. I also really, really love what's happening in the southwest of Ireland with the Unseen, which is literally a host of musicians underneath a banner from my side of town as well. Shout out to Naive Ted and Andy Connolly, and what those guys are doing with the Unseen. So, and then if you go to Cork, they're doing something different altogether. So I think Ireland as a whole has different places doing what they're doing, and doing a great job of it. So I really like it, and I wanted to speak on it because I'm really, really enjoying it. But my whole approach was foresight, insight, and hindsight. Foresight to say this is sort of where we're going. If you look at Strange Boy from Limerick, if you look at Hazy from Limerick, JOE.ie from Kildare, if you look at Jafaris from Dublin, and then insight would be the people that I sort of came up with as well, in a way. The GIs, the Costellos, we were in completely different sides of the country, but I was doing it the same way, but the spotlight was on those guys, the working class records. And that was the insight. I shouted out Paul Allwright, is frequently known as Lethal Dialect, and I wanted to, shout out G.I. Costello and Paul Allwright. So that's insight. And then hindsight is Rira and DJ Mech, and Scary Era. I wanted to give a nod to what they did, because they were supporting U2 back in the day and really doing big things at the time that no one had done ever. They got signed to Island Records for a crazy amount of money, and for me, I look up to that. I know that music is in our hands now. The label is not necessarily where we run to, but at the time when that was the way to go, they did it the biggest, and they made moves that were never done before at the time. So that was the aim of the song. For that second verse was foresight, insight, and hindsight to what the Irish scene is and has, and where it's going.
Just something you said there about music being in our hands. How important is that in the music you're making? And like you mentioned, a lot of the people you mentioned are coming from Limerick, and like I know you're from Shannon, but Limerick is like a big part of what you do. Like, is that sense, like I'm talking to people in Limerick this week about the music scene there, and they're saying it could only have happened, what's happening there in a city like Limerick, with the cultural kind of mix there and the slight sense of being an outsider. Is that something that is important? Is that important then to have the music in your own hands when you have all those factors combining?
I think that it's it gives you an opportunity to be unique when you're not necessarily in the in crowd, because sometimes when you're in the in crowd, you just do what everyone else is doing. So that's forced most of us to carve out your own lane, and that's beautiful because you're your own person at the end of it. But it can be very difficult because, again, you might not have loads of people to advocate for you, or to be like, yeah, you should totally do this. But it's important that it's in people's hands, mainly because, again, if you then want to bring out the music, you know how to do it, you know what way you want to do it, and what way people can access it and access you. And literally you're speaking to the people who buy your music. So that's beautiful because, you're not waiting too long. You're literally making the music, having it ready, giving it directly to your audience, and I guess that's beautiful, because if you don't have a place to bring it out, then it just stays between you and your friends. And that's no good. You want the music to be heard, and I think that's, anyway, for me, why I do it. I want my music to be heard as far as it can go, and having it in your own hands gives you that opportunity to do that.
And was music always the thing you wanted to do?
Absolutely, absolutely. My uncle was famous in my country of birth, Zimbabwe, my country as well, because I'm both Zimbabwean and Irish. My uncle was doing it, and he was on television all the time, and I'll see him in the mix. If there's a chart show, it would be his music beside legendary artists from the Congo and South Africa and UK, and I never said, no, my uncle is big in Zimbabwe. He's like, no, my uncle is big, man, because there wasn't necessarily like, this is one thing. So that kind of, if seeing my uncle beside some of my favorite musicians all over the world made me want to be a part of music all over the world. I didn't want to just be one thing stuck in a box, in a way. It kind of made me want to do music. I'd seen that it can be done. I saw him perform at stadiums. I saw him perform on TV, on music videos. I know that he toured in Europe and stuff early on, so. But
he was a huge figure, because he was a political figure too in some ways, wasn't he?
Yes, because he was a comrade. He fought on the war of independence, in the war of independence, excuse my grammar. But he fought in the war, and he was respected for what he did for the country. And then he was always a musician, but then he kind of transitioned into doing that as a career as well. So he was I love him, man. R.I.P. Uncle Chings, but like he inspired me. He was like one of the moments I was like, yeah, man, it can be done. Look, he's on the TV, as kids, like, I'll be so excited to see his music, and not only because he's my uncle. I mean, it could have been terrible music, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I'm just fortunate it wasn't. So.
And so you grew up in Zimbabwe. What was your upbringing like there?
Upbringing was awesome, man. I had an amazing upbringing in Zimbabwe, man. That was one house. I always think to myself all the time, I'm very privileged to have had the type of childhood that I had in Zimbabwe. Like, I was only there until I was, I was 10 by the time I moved, a brief stint in the UK. But man, it was incredible, because I had the type of upbringing that I could, the world was mine, kind of a way
Right.
where I was one of those kids who I could go anywhere I wanted.
You grew up in
And
Harare, did you?
yes, in the city as well.
Yeah.
So and the thing is, with relatives everywhere and cousins
Right.
everywhere, I literally was a kid that was bouncing around.
Okay.
And got to live many lives, if that makes sense. If I go to this cousin, I know that they're the cousins that are really, really well off, and then you go to your other cousins that are doing okay. You go to your other cousins who are not doing so well. You're around your uncles who you love, but then you see different ways of life. And I went to my neighborhood that I grew up in. I didn't go to school there. I went to school in a very, very, kind of well-off neighborhood. So I saw, oh, that's what they do. Okay. All right. Then in my neighborhood, it's just me and the lads. So by the age of 10, I could, I felt like I was already living,
Right.
really, really living. So
and you were taking all that in as well.
Yes.
So you were noticing the differences.
Yes, absolutely. So coming to Ireland that's where the culture shock was the culture shock of, oh wow, like suddenly the innocence in me, because I was just an innocent kid before, then kind of that, okay, like dropped into being a teenager, because I wouldn't have been a kid who was like into, I love TV, but I wasn't a kid who cared so much about all of that when I was a kid. So then suddenly you're dropped into like everyone wanting to be what was on the television and stuff like that. It was like, right. I mean, geez, I love movies. That's as a kid back then, I just loved movies, and maybe because TV at the time was very Americanized in Zimbabwe. Anyway, so because you're watching other people live a life that you don't live, I didn't care too much about it. But now moving to Ireland, suddenly I'm like, right, it could be like Zach Morris. So if I want to be like Zach Morris, then I'm gonna have to learn how to talk to girls, and gonna have to do this. And suddenly now you're trying to be something that you're not, and that was a culture shock, because suddenly I had to stop being a kid now and try to be this thing on TV, which you learn so after so long that I could never be Zach Morris. I'm God knows from Shannon, born in grew up in Zimbabwe, different personalities and all these things. So
why did your parents leave?
Work. So I already had some family in the UK. So initially my dad was working for Air Zimbabwe for 16 years. So he was free to travel anywhere.
Okay.
So because he was traveling anyway, and I had uncles in the UK, we were like, yeah, cool, let's just relocate and just see what it's like in the UK. And then because his trade is an aircraft engineer, it was just natural to just move to Ireland, because they were starting something in Shannon Airspace. And then boom.
But you went to Sheffield first?
Yeah.
And how did you find that?
Sheffield was the biggest culture shock I have ever had, because that was coming from being this innocent kid. It was just culture shock, because I was, like I said, like concrete jungle of like, this is concrete and fully. Whereas like I was a kid who could go in the city, because go in the city, but in it's still in the city, but like you go, it's like, I don't know what way can I say it here. Like you go to Blanchardstown. Blanchardstown is very different to being in the city.
Yeah.
Similar thing where it's like I go back home and then hang out with all my friends, but I can go to, like I was the kid that, if I can put it into terms for Ireland, I was a kid who could go to spend half the day in Blanchardstown, go to Tala, and then go to Lucan, and then I was I had a sort of a world passport, because millions of cousins and uncles and aunts and stuff like that. So I never stayed in one place. Yeah. Suddenly moved to Sheffield, I just have to stay in this one room. Right. You know what I mean? Like for almost the bones of like, a year and a half,
Okay.
spend time in this one room, and you just do this other two things, and like, whereas like I'm coming from a position of like the world is yours.
Yeah.
You don't have to live in one place. So that
And you
was
was very much in your lane, like keep in your lane. And
absolutely. And I guess my folks were also worried about me because there was, I think, knife crime was on the rise at the time as well in the UK. So, and abductions and stuff like that. That was happening. Racial hate attacks or whatever, that was happening as well. So, it was very protective parents. They want you to, so they was kind of like, you don't go too far. So suddenly in my head, I'm like, don't go too far. And that's opposite of who I was as a kid.
And that must have been a shock in every sense, because suddenly you're being told that there are restrictions. You've got to be careful in the world.
Yes.
The world isn't a safe place.
Yes, I think that was as much the discovery then. Whereas even in Zimbabwe, I knew very much that the world was not the nicest place ever. But I was such I wouldn't say protective, but like no fear of me at all. Like no fear, because I had a million uncles, a million cousins, million everything. Like I never was short of anything, which is why moving to Ireland and then suddenly people think that you're a part of the troker and all these concern and man, I hated those things because I'm like, it's just showing one side of Africa. You don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, I've like, not to say that I was extremely well off, but like, man, like, just working class, like anybody else, like, you know what I mean? But like, like I told you, like, go to this cousin over here, see, oh my gosh, like, like the place I lived where I went to school in primary school, like very, very, very wealthy, side of the city, just like anywhere else in the world, right? But then at the same time, like where I lived was, very much working class, where I actually grew up. So then coming to Ireland and then you're looking at me like I'm the dirt. Like, it's like, well, does that make sense? There's poverty everywhere in the world, but you're looking at me as the definition.
And that was what you got. You didn't get that in Sheffield. You got that
in Sheffield I didn't get that. Do you know why? Because there is, it's a melting pot more so because, boys, it's England. There's my closest friends in the UK were from Pakistan and Somalia and England, of course, Sheffield itself. So Jamaica, like Caribbean. There was a melting pot of different cultures. Yeah. So what I got was actually just bullying, but you get bullying everywhere. Of course, it's just a terrible thing, but it's bullying everywhere. So it wasn't like they were picking on me because I was black and from this place. It was more like, I'm picking on you because, I don't know, you look funny. Right. That kind of a way, which doesn't really bother you, when you grow up. You don't grow up psychologically thinking, rah, they said I look funny. But then they said he looked funny or she looked funny. So it never bothered me as much as to the extent where being in Ireland, genuine, I'm like, you are a racist, sir. And
what were you experiencing?
It was funny because I was the only black kid in my school at the time. And with things like in Ireland, because it's like I can't be racist. Like I can't be racist. Like that notion of I can't be racist is what makes Ireland racist. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, nah, but sure I can't. Like, sure, I'm my cousin.
Why would they?
Sure, my cousin. My cousin is dating a black girl now. Like, so sure, look, like, I could call you the N-word. Like, right. Like, hold on, like, wait, that the idea that we can't be racist is, it's like someone who is, like, I someone actually said this the other week, which is really, really cool. And they're like, oppression has no hierarchy. And I really, really rate and really love that sentiment. So I'm not gonna try to put my privilege over someone else, or my prejudice over, it's kind of like, that's. But what I will say is that the denial is what made it really bad, because I was the only black kid, you then have a million questions, because I want to believe you're just being ignorant.
Yeah.
I want to believe that you don't mean it. But then, unfortunately, with anything that goes unchecked, what happens? It doesn't go away. It grows. It grows because you're denying that you have a problem.
Yeah.
When you say, yeah, man, you're right. That's why in England, because it's such a melting pot, people can call you out. But 5 different people can call you out. You know what I mean? So it's not only the black kid who's calling you out, it's also the kid who's from Pakistan. It's because you're growing up with them.
Yeah.
Whereas this thing that happens when you've decided that you're not, because you've made the choice to say, I'm sure I'm not racist.
And where is that coming? Like you say, is it coming from that sense that Irish people are oppressed, so they can't be an oppressor? That kind of idea.
Yes.
Like, and you have it in one of your songs, no blacks,
Yes.
no Irish, no that idea.
Yes.
Like the prejudice Irish people would have experienced excludes them from being racist. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But was it? But does that? But that also then closes people down from the point of, as you're saying, from because if you think you can't be a racist, how can you learn that you? That you are a racist?
I mean, it's like, it's the moment that it's your son's or daughter, or child, your child's best friend is from a different country.
Yeah.
Suddenly, they grew up together, spend years together. They say something that you taught them to their friend. They come back and say, Mom, why did you do that to my friend?
Yeah.
Suddenly, you're forced to look yourself in the eye and say, geez, I have a problem. Because they learned it from you, so you've been saying it all the time.
Yeah.
This is what you think. This is what goes on in your heart, in your mind, and it's never been challenged. But now, because of time, you now have opportunity to be pressed about something that you've never been pressed about. And then that's the moment you're like, oh snap, yeah, I have to deal with myself. And I think many people don't ever have that opportunity. That's why Shannon was difficult, because even though it's a made up town, I would say a lot of people were seeing a black person for the first time. So you maybe your excitement, maybe your joy, maybe your disgust, is gonna lead you to say and do things, whatever it is that motivated people to do and say the things that they did. I don't want to be like, no, they were just, they were just being nice, they didn't know what. If I excuse it, that means I'm letting some other person in a small part of Ireland grow up with their own.
Yeah. And what did you do?
The thing with me is that I put it all into expression. For me, it turned into music, but it just so turned into something that I can talk about. Maybe some people don't know how to express it.
Yeah.
Maybe some people deal with it different ways. I just dealt with it in a musical way where it just happens to come out of me in a hopefully in a very objective, honest way.
But did it make you feel like, were you kind of thinking, what are we doing here? Why are we in this place where I'm being made to feel like this all the time?
No, man, I knew why we were here, man. My folks were working.
Yeah.
Just like anybody else, you know what I mean? My parents both work very hard. They're both, very successful people. So I knew what we were here for. I just knew that I wanted to do music.
Yeah.
That was just the difficulties, because, if I didn't want to go into being an accountant or something, or, not that that's bad. Big up accountants worldwide, but wanted to do music. So that's what made me a little bit different and made me question myself a whole lot. Like, geez, I should just be like any other, immigrant's child who should just go for, teacher job or the ABCD, the 4 or 5 jobs that many people go into. But I wanted to do music.
You said about that you did one interview. You said, when I was younger, I'd feel like I didn't fit in with my friends, and then I'd go home and I'd feel I didn't fit in with my parents. They were holding on to the culture from back home. And was that it? Was that what you were experiencing, that you were kind of on the front line of these two different worlds?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Denise Chyler, a great MC. She's got a spoken word poem it's called Dual Citizenship, and it's like dual as the fight of the war between two sides, and that's basically it. You are literally coming out where the lads are like, you staying up, and then my folks are like, well, you need to be out, you need to be back home for a certain time, and then abide to certain rules. And you sort of want to please everybody, and you want to be one thing. But the beautiful thing with growing and growing up and forming your own opinions and being your own person is that you realize that I am both, man. Yeah, I am Irish and I am Zimbabwean. But at the same time, I thought there was a time when I wanted to fight someone and be like, where are you really from? I'll be like, Claire. Right. Where are you really from? Yeah. Shannon. My mother. I don't know. But, now is also what's that worth as well. It's because maybe I should just be like, I don't really want to have that conversation. I just realized that, because some of that stuff starts to feel insulting after a while. It's like, I don't know if you ask anybody else that question, but maybe it's also a curiosity. I just want to know, but all of that stuff, you literally come to a point where I embrace who I am. Today, if I want to say that I'm Zimbabwean, I can say that because, I'm Zimbabwean. But today, if I also want to say I'm from Clare, I can do that also. And that's the one thing that gave me liberation, because it's like, man, I'm free, man. I'm free. I'm a human being from the world. You know what I mean? And I don't have to be put in different boxes that maybe someone without knowing. 'Cause sometimes they're not knowing it, that they're putting you in a box. I'm not gonna abide by them. I'm just gonna be myself and the best version of myself that I can be. And that's that.
And do you get to distinguish, or do you learn to distinguish between the kind of curiosity and something that might be more persistent or more aggressive? From people, like when you say asking you where.
Yeah, I mean, you see, the worst thing about life is that human beings have the capacity to endure, right? So you might walk into let's say on a very, very bad day, you walk into a restaurant, the first person you meet asks you that question, and whether they're being polite or not, then maybe by the end of the day you have like 10 people of varying degrees of ignorance and racism and all this stuff. So then which one was the worst one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because because you could literally just take everything on the chin, you go home to bed, but then you've just had a bad day. But then you may even go to bed and say, why am I so upset? You forgot. Because we have the ability to endure. But the most healthiest people are people that are able to look at certain situations and say, oh, that hurt me, like early on. Because the problem is that if you're carrying, that's where you then you are now the mirror image of the things that you're looking at. Because suddenly next thing you see someone on the TV, like in America with the unjust arrest or racial profiling, suddenly then you're being what you just saw as well, even if you didn't have that notion in your head before. So that's the thing. I think that it doesn't matter if that person is being curious or polite. I think that it's having the capacity to want to learn. And it's across the board now. Again, like I said, oppression has no hierarchy.
Yeah.
So, like, across the board, we're all in the information age where we're all realizing we have prejudices that we never even knew we had. So, the only smart, and if we're adhering to wisdom, we say, I need to work on myself. And I think we're trying, but I'll say there's certain people who say, I can't be racist.
Yeah.
You see, that's where the issue is. That's the same thing of, I can't be sexist. I have a sister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's loads of it. There's loads of them things, and again, wisdom says, you know what, let me listen.
Well, it would seem to be that Ireland would be in the opposite position because it's been so monocultural for so long that it has to acknowledge that the way conversations are conducted and the way things happen has to be different and have to change, and that ignorance about the wounding nature of comments like that is real. Like, it's because it's more or less denying your right to that place. Like, if they keep asking you versions of that question, isn't that what it's doing? It's kind of denying, like, as you say, you end up kind of like feeling that you can't say you're from Zimbabwe because it's like a kind of admission that you're not from Ireland.
Yeah, it's kind of like there was a point where I used to want to fight for my right to be Irish almost.
Yeah.
But I just know I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
I just know I am.
And you can be more than one thing.
Yeah. It's funny because then you think you have to be this other. Because the worst thing about it is that you go to extra limits to be, like, almost start saying, sure, look like yourself, or like, start speaking in a thick, clear accent,
right? Yeah,
or I'm gonna go the opposite and have a deep African accent, which unfortunately I've neither, just varying degrees of. If I'm really tired, you might get a Zimbabwean accent. If I'm really happy, you might get a thick, clear accent. So it just depends on the moment. So literally, that's why, because it's so unpredictable. Because when you're a hybrid of anything, it's unpredictable. It's so unpredictable when one thing would just be like, oh, clear accent. Oh. So man, I'm blessed to be a hybrid, actually.
And that was 2001 you came here, was it?
Yep.
And do you think it's got better?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I actually want to say that I saw an article that said Ireland is the most racist country in Europe. Crazy, right? I didn't say it. I saw the article. I think even Blind Boy shared it as well.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it's now. It's not like we were back then. So again, I'll bring it back to that I can't be racist thing.
Yeah.
That's what's holding us back. Because at the end of the day, it's the same thing that holds us back in other prejudices as well. Because I want to, man. I'm an optimist. I'm always gonna be glass full type of person. So I will always want to advocate for that. But I also gotta go with wisdom and truth. And wisdom and truth says, if we're saying I can't be racist, that's where the issue is.
Yeah.
We gotta, literally start as we mean to go on. Start as we mean to go on is like anybody. I love being an MC. I've been MCing since I was a little kid, but I can always get better.
Yeah.
So that's where that's me. So being honest right now would be, you know what, we need to get better because there's some small town somewhere where they've probably never encountered a black person. But if we're not, because social media, you don't have to leave your house to get wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom is on your phone. You know what I mean? So in that small town where there's black guys never stepped foot yet, or not many, we want to make sure that it's a safe place, and that's all everybody wants, right? Just to be in a safe place and to know that you're secure.
And how did the music, when you say you're doing it since you were young age, when you got to Shannon, when did you were you emceeing then at that stage, or did you start there?
I was trying.
Yeah,
I was trying, but you know, you don't get good straight away. Like it takes time. It takes time, like anything, to get really good at something. I just knew I loved it with everything. I just knew that, you know, again, I was pretending like I was my uncle sitting,
right.
You know, there's a music video with my uncle sitting on the map of Africa, and it's like one of my favorite songs. It's like, it was a song that he was just advocating for all of Africa, and I was just like, you know, I was always pretending like I was him. You know what I mean? So, reggae music, dancehall music, and hip hop music, they all took precedence in my life. So, you know, I've always been the family DJ in a way where it's everyone knows that I collect music, not just hip hop music. I collect music, full stop, you know, because my earliest moments, literally my earliest moments of music is, there was a Saturday, there's Thursday, 2 nights where music would be you know, everyone goes in home to go watch the music, to see which songs have made it to the top 10 of the country's top music. Right? And on Thursday, you know, literally, you know, if my uncle releases, he might be in there. You know, he wasn't number one all the time. He might have been a couple of times on that show, but like, he might be number 10, number 5, number 2, number 1. It's like, so everyone will go in, and then that'll be something we all could talk about. Oh, who was on who was number 1 this week? You know, who's killing it? You know, and you know, it's a sense of pride for me to know that was my uncle, and I never forget those songs. So to this day, I still remember all the, you know, we called it Ezomgido, you know, like, which is like the chart, you know, you're top of the pops in a way, but it's, you know, different varying types of music. That's what makes Africa eclectic in a way, because if you notice the genre right now that's really popular, Drake did a song with a guy called Wizkid, one of the biggest Afrobeats artists, but we call it Afrobeats because it's not a genre. So sort of like what I love about that. About Irish music as well, you have a band like Girl Band, and then you have Rasengan, and then you have Lisa Hannigan, and you know, different. But at the end of the day, we just call it Irish music. You don't go, oh, that's that small thing that you put over there. That's Afrobeats. So my earliest memories is knowing that there's such a wide range of music, and I think maybe 5 years old. On the Saturday, because the one on Thursday is mainly Zimbabwean music. One on the Saturdays, all over Africa. So then I'll see Lucky Dube from South Africa. I'll see Pepe Kale from Congo. And then Take That. You know, Take That. Come on. You know, literally, I was like, rah, I love that Back for Good tune. But I also love Lucky Dube's tune. And I also love Pepe Kale's tune. And I also, you know, so because of all those varying genres, I was only 5, by the way, so like literally my musical tastes were only being birthed at that time. So that kind of made me someone who was gonna grow up to love a wide range of music. So that's literally where it started as well, you know. And see my uncle in the mix with those giants, you know, it made me want to do music.
And take me forward then, like, as how important was the music you did then, as in it, like asserting your identity and who you were, and when you started doing it in Shannon, like how difficult was that to begin with?
Yeah, man, it's difficult because sure, like, look, what are you doing music like? You know, that's a question that everybody asks, and I hear them, and I heard them a lot, which, you know, made me want to do it more because I had seen it being done already by my uncle who had done his thing, you know. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough to kind of, but then, you know, now I don't base my identity on any one thing, because you are more than a lot of these things. I'm God knows I'm myself. I can change. You know, I think now I'm more forgiving on if I decide I don't want to do music tomorrow. That's okay with me. I'm more forgiving on who I am going to be, because anything can happen. And I think when you base your identity on one thing, you're gonna burn out at some point, and you're gonna you're gonna just lose love for it, and so much more, because that's all you have allowed yourself to be. So yeah, that's something that would have been difficult questions, because again, there's already a lot of difficult questions I had to encounter. Like, am I Irish? Am I Zimbabwean? Am I, Baptist? Am I Catholic? Am I, so many questions that we all have. But I think, yeah, man, I know who I am now. And I think that's all I can think about now. Is funny because now I don't even think about identity as something that bothers me too much, because I just want to be the best version of God knows that I can be.
But Rasengan, then, how did that evolve?
So Rasengan is, myself and my two brothers. My name is John from Clare, and Merle from Limerick and Togo. So I would have been, I think when there was only one other crew in Limerick when I was a kid, like from your rapping days, you're competitive. I just want to be the best version of rap happening in Clare and Shannon. There was only one other group that we knew that was doing it at the level of seriousness that we were at my age anyway. And that was Merle and his crew.
Right.
And then it just so happened that from there, our relationship between the crews formed, and some of my closest friends are from those days. And John was working in Clare for Clare Youth Service, and then he was getting us to do gigs at the time, and then he saw us perform in Ennis, at a festival. One of the ones in the town. Everyone does things for their community, so shout out people doing stuff for their community. And when we did that, John was like, yeah, man, I would love to perform with you. We did Electro Picnic together, and then because Merle is someone I always respected, and it's kind of like, John, do you know what? It's my friend Merle, who's also amazing. And then from there, our relationship as friends, as musicians, and the respect we have for each other, we just said, you know what, let's make music. And then we made Rasengan Family album, Let the Dead Bury the Dead. And then, we got, we won the Choice Music Prize. From that journey, you didn't just do music together, not caring about all that stuff. I mean, it was kind of like, if we get it, cool. But if we don't, we're doing it because we love music.
And how important was the Choice Prize for you? Was it a validation?
Yeah, I mean, you don't do it for it, but it does definitely mean a lot, because it's something that gives you a sort of respect that people give you, because it's kind of like, he knows what he's talking about kind of thing. Or, he's done something. But, man, it meant a lot. If I can be very honest, it meant a whole lot in terms of, these are your peers. These are people you love and respect who've also been nominated or have won in the past. So it's always good, because, we all love to compete in something that we all love. We all want to be the best version of that. I mean, I'm not so focused on wanting to be the best that I lose myself, but I'm definitely want to be the best version of what I do. And to know that for that year we were the best versions of what we do was really, really amazing and rewarding in a personal kind of, wow, like, I know I worked hard on this. I know I sacrificed, birthdays and cousins, I don't know, we can be party or wedding, like things like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that you weren't able to be at all the time because you're gigging somewhere, and and you're touring or you're in studio. Your mind is focused on one thing and one thing only. So for that, it was rewarding to say for that year, yeah, man, we did that with by ourselves, with no major help from anybody. Jeez, that's really, really fantastic.
And is there a need, you think, for more official acknowledgement of music and what is happening in places like Limerick? Because I know you've talked about this in the past as well, that there might be an imbalance in where funding goes and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that it depends what people want to do, because maybe not a lot of people want to go that route. But if there's opportunities, I know there's a rake of professional MCs who, I'll use the term professional. They're just as professional as anybody else. Now, it just depends what people call art, because some people might not call certain things art, but it's art. You know what I mean? And I believe that if there's just people want opportunities, right? People always want opportunities, and a lot of people are willing to work hard for that. If it's available, you work hard for it.
Yeah.
Congratulations to my brother Merle, who just got a residency in Paris.
Right. Yeah.
But again, because the opportunity was there, he went for it and he got it. So if there's more of that going,
yeah,
sure, wouldn't you have more of a diverse
but why
range?
wouldn't people call it art? Because it is art. Like, or do you think there is a resistance?
I believe it's just more. Maybe some people know how to write, because I know some MCs, even myself, like that wouldn't be something I'm really great at, writing funding applications.
Okay.
Some people genuinely
Yeah.
have people who are really good and really meticulous and know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that the languaging might go over other people's heads, but then there's people that over the years have done it and know someone else who's done it, and this person has done it before, so they can show you how they did it.
Yeah.
Whereas for other musicians who are just regular musicians, but also the thing is, if you look at the description of what the criteria, we might not meet the criteria all the time, because it's sort of sometimes it's to preserve a certain type of cultural,
right,
like let's say, if it's classical music, you're preserving some, or
right,
if it's certain type of trad music, you're preserving
Yeah.
it. Whereas I believe now you have other people who can actually do the same thing now, but just with different ways.
Yeah.
But they're still preserving the same things. Maybe you could get someone who recreate a certain track, but maybe make it a rap track, or maybe sing it, or maybe do it and put it in a, you see it in all your favorite musicians. There's, one of my favorite albums is by an artist called James Blake. He's worked with Beyonce, he worked with Frank Ocean, he's worked with, Kendrick Lamar. These are the top tier artists in America, but he's got Sinead singing on one of his songs with Rosalia, Barefoot in the Park. But at the end of the day,
well, culture shouldn't be a theme park, should it? It shouldn't be something you're kind of going to see something as it used to be. Like, it should be evolving and changing, and that should be what it's is at its most vibrant.
Yeah. But again, this isn't a dig or.
No, I know that. I know you're not.
It's just because I care about. I care about what I do, and I just want to see more people get into opportunities. But I also know that sometimes it's very difficult. Then if we also don't know how to meet the criteria of what's the standard that's being set. So, but advocating is something that I was able to do, and because I was given that opportunity by the Arts Council to advocate, that sort of gave me the platform to say what I needed to say.
Talk to me about Music Generation and what that does and what it's meant for you.
Music Gen has been really good to me, and gave me opportunity to give what I have, because it's.
Can you tell us what it is first?
So
maybe?
Music Generation was basically shout out to U2. It was U2 who funded it. So our first initial funding was U2. Shout out to Boris Hanke as well, who was our coordinator and my boss in the Limerick side of Music Generation. But I guess we are going in there to sometimes it's not even to teach, because I want to say teach music, and but sometimes it's unlocking the artist, their inner artist, from the perspective of a musician, because I'm going in there as God knows the musician. I'm not going in there as someone who's going to teach you the grades of piano. I'm going in there to show you what I do as a musician, and I believe that everybody can rap. Now are you going to be a great rapper? That's up to you and if you want to practice and get very good at that. But it's unlocking that inner artist in a kid. And sometimes for me, it's just saying you can do it. You can do it. Something that's alternative to what you saw. I know that for me, as a kid who wanted and knew that there was a possibility that I could be an artist, and then maybe even having someone stamp it and say, yeah, you can. I think sometimes that's something that we do as well. But we get deep as well, because it's wide ranging. It's not just rap. There is other bands that are also bands and people in bands who also go into and do that from their perspective as well. There's DJs, there's producers, and Limerick happens to be very unique in that I know that I know this is a crazy in Limerick there's two music heroes bigger than anybody else. And that's Tupac Shakur and Bob Marley.
Right.
And it just, I don't know how it ended up being that, but it is what it is. You definitely will get loads of kids, regardless of age. They love Pac and they love Bob Marley. So that gives us a unique opportunity as a rapper, because, it's also one of my favorite artists of all time. So, then that gives us an opportunity in Limerick to actually really, power on into places that, many people probably wouldn't think of doing music the way we do anyway.
And where do you want to go with music? Where do you think it can take you?
You know what? I'm just going to focus on continuing doing it, but I have no expectations, but no limitations either. Like I was introduced to music through my uncle, and I know I spoke about him a lot, but that's because it's somebody that, deeply, deeply influenced me, because he showed me that it can be done. So that kind of put no roof over my head. And because it put no roof over my head, I believe that if I can make music and make money to make more music, that's me. But at the same time, if I'm not going to say no to the what comes with it. But at the same time, I know that my integrity and longevity are very important to me. So those two things are priority: my integrity and making sure that I can do this long term, because I'm not here for a good time. I'm here for a long time.
God knows, it's been great listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was God Knows. That was a really fascinating conversation. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe on all the usual channels to Ireland Unfiltered, and we'll see you next week.